Ladies and gentlemen, everybody watching, it is Thursday, so you know what that means. Welcome to a new episode of InfoSec Unplugged. I am your host, Davin Jackson, also known as DJax, and I thank you for joining. I know you guys could be anywhere on a Thursday night, especially dealing with some of this Log4j stuff, but you're spending some time with me, and I greatly appreciate it. So we're going to jump right into who our guest is for this week. But first, I want to say a big thank you to everybody who checked out my video that I did on Tuesday. It's been a long week, but Tuesday for Try Hack Me's Advent of Cyber. I was the guest walkthrough for that challenge, and the support and feedback that I got was like tremendous. So again, thank you for that. You guys don't know how much you mean to me, and with everything that you guys do and support. And like I said, I love y'all for that. There's a lot of stuff going on, some stuff that I, don't really want to get into, some stuff that I can't talk about, but that feedback and that support and that love that you showed definitely showed me that I think I'm in the right direction of what I want to do. So thank you all for that. Greatly appreciated. My guest tonight needs no introduction, but just in case you do, she is a cloud and technology, I wouldn't say expert, but she's definitely a leader and someone to be reckoned with in this field. She is a great mentor. Every time I turn around, she her name comes up as someone that is highly regarded and just a really great person overall. I've dealt with her a couple times. She actually checked me once on a Twitter space, but we'll talk about that when we get her in here. But ladies and gentlemen, everybody watching, please welcome my guest, Erica Cooper.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Good evening. How's it going?
How you doing?
Good.
So, like I said before, we've been following each other for a while. But one of the things I remember when Twitter Spaces first started, not the Twitter Spaces as we know it to be now, we were all in a group chat for something, and I think the question was asked about different perspectives about something, and I probably was having a bad day, and I gave my perspective, and you jumped right on and was like, "I'm gonna stop you right there, and I'm gonna disagree with you," and I was like, "Oh, okay," but your insight was definitely helpful, and it definitely made me kind of look at it from a different perspective. But like I said, nonetheless, that just goes to show that who you are and the quality of person that you are. So I know who you are. It looks like a bunch of people here know who you are, but for those who don't know, please let them know. Give them an introduction about yourself.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Erica Cooper. I am a senior technical leader at Cisco Systems. I've been in the industry now for about 20 years. My background is data center, virtualization, security, and I'm starting to make my way into cloud technologies and automation. I love the IT world. I mean, I've been in tech for a while. I've started out on the routing and switching side and kind of moved over into data center and virtualization. I'm a data center CCIE, and I've had my data center CCIE since 2014, so it's been a while. So right now I lead a lot of different government solutions, and provide government technology solutions for the intelligence community as well as state and local and municipality government. So I love just giving the opportunity to kind of talk in these settings because it's a great way to give feedback to the community. So appreciate it.
Okay, so first we're gonna go ahead and applaud you again for that data center CCIE flex. Respectfully, an OG in the game. So clearly,
you and I both.
Yeah. So clearly, you know what you're talking about. So again, thank you again for joining. If you want to give like I said, you've been in the game for a while. If you want to give a synopsis of how you got started, what led you into tech?
That's a great question. So I've always been fascinated with, technology. I've got an electrical engineering degree. So, it was just kind of that led me into, just getting into more of the technology kind of, working with my hands, anything dealing with, math and science, I was, I was always there for that. When I came out of school, I just got 100% into the voice, side of things, working with Lucent Technologies, but I didn't really like that part, and so I left Lucent after about 4 years, and I ran into a gentleman that gave me a lot of experience in my first crack at data center, working with routing and switching. So that was a huge plus for me, and I've been working with Cisco products and just routing and switching and anything else from that matter since then. I've moved up, working in different fields, so it's just kind of just the luck of the draw. It's like, it's moving your career and advancing within the technology space. So,
Right. You got to stay relevant, right?
absolutely, you have to.
You can't go stale. So before we continue, we do have some other OGs and heavy hitters in the chat tonight. So again, my pack, again, thank you all for joining. We have John Brett, Cyber Insight, saying, "Hey everybody." We have my guest from last week, Dira J. Footman. Sorry I ranted for so long last week, but it was a great conversation.
Oh yeah.
She says, "Hey."
I tuned into that one too. That was great. That was a great one.
We have Professor Black Ops, another OG, says, "What is up?" My wife, not in the tech field, but she might as well be since she hears me rant about a lot of this stuff. She says hello. Makeshift says he finally made it. Yes, sir. I'm glad you are here. We have another friend of the show, Infinite Improbability. Like I said, love the name. And then we have Marcus J. Carey, who says OG for shizzle. So, and then we have Samuel, who says, "Hey." So again, thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it. You guys know the routine. You guys can ask your questions here, and you know the rules. You can ask anything. Just keep it clean, keep it respectful. Like I said, clearly you saw me last week. I don't have a problem speaking my mind when I need to speak. So,
Right.
Erica, so you talked about your experience. You talked about how you came up in the tech field. So what is a day in the life of a like senior technical leader? Like again, high level.
Yeah, that's a good question. So right now, I support a lot of the intelligence communities within my U.S. public sector at Cisco. And so what happens is a lot of the engineers, I think I've got about 400 or 500 engineers that are up under me. When they come up with a different type of challenges on the customer side, instead of them going and open up I guess, an internal attack case or trying to reach out to our internal business unit, it's myself and my other colleagues. We're in our own separate verticals or swim lanes. We, help those engineers out with their, solutions. So, for example, if you have an ACI, SD-WAN or SDN type of technology solution that you need help with, then I have to come in and I have to help you get that solution, that presentation, that implementation finished for the customer. So it's a lot of understanding what the customer wants, understanding where the delivery engineer, what he or she's actually put in front of the customer, kind of sifting through and seeing, okay, here's where you kind of made some challenges here. Let's fix it, course correct, and let's move forward. So it's kind of helping them through the actual journey of the project. So it's not only that, but then I'm also building out a cloud solution for one of my intelligence customers. It's one of the largest within the world for them. So it's a pretty big deal, pretty big event. I can't tell you the customer, but I can go in high level as far as like like the technology. We're using like a hybrid cloud solution, so it's dealing with a lot with Azure and Azure Stack. So that's why it kind of was just like an entryway into getting some familiarity and pretty much understanding the cloud technology. So like I said, it's the largest one in the world for that customer. So it's a pretty big deal. So.
Okay, see, I like the subtle flex in there. I love it, but that's why I love the show, because you know what, you gotta stretch yourself sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So so we're gonna get into the cloud stuff in a second, but how how challenging is that, because you're kind of dealing with different customers on whether it be a few weeks or whatever, however long the engagement is. But how
Mhm.
challenging is it to kind of, I guess, meet the demands and more than likely exceed their
Oh, yeah.
expectations? Because sometimes a lot of customers come in and they have an idea of what they want,
Mhm.
but they don't know what it entails and they don't know the work that goes behind it.
Yeah.
So if you could speak on some of the challenges, about that, and how you kind of navigate through that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So it is very challenging. For example, a lot of the customers think they know what they want to put actually input, into production. They get a solution that's kind of presented from the account team, but it's the delivery engineering team that actually makes that whatever that design that you put in place on board or the white paper, we bring that to life. And so sometimes I've had to go back and really kind of fix a design that was already presented that was had some challenges and it kind of not really 100% accurate, and that's okay. It's just getting the thing right out the door once the finished product. A lot of times I'll have to make a very tough decision, and it's okay. I've learned to kind of be comfortable in my own skin,
Hmm.
and have a lot of thick skin because I'm in my case you don't see too many women and women of color in that position. So I have to deal a lot with other very strong technical personalities, but you have to be authentic when you come to the table, and that's and you have to stand in your own truth, and even if that means going against some of the challenges that they put in place. I'll give you an example real quick, high level. One of my account teams, they presented a technology solution to my customer, and they did not take into consideration there was absolutely zero room for growth. So in other words, whatever you bought there, you're going to have to immediately upgrade, let's say in the next 2 years. So that meant additional monies and additional time, and it's just like just to even get to the point where you can expand.
So no
And
scalability.
no scalability. It was just like we just want to buy I want to sell the equipment, and then I'm done. And it's like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. We're going to have to go back to the drawing board because if your customer, if they so for example, they were putting in SDN, software defined networks for ACI. And
Hmm.
so what that said is that you can actually expand your east-west traffic between hosts. So that you can add additional leaves, and then that way you can get more hosts available within the fabric. But they sold the wrong type of switches to do that. And I was like, yeah, we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board on this. And they were in the middle of right before they, signed the number to kind of sign the check to actually, ship the equipment out. But I'd rather get it right, and versus we get everything on site and it's like, oops, we didn't order the right stuff. Yeah, so it's just standing true, and being able to withstand that, because I mean you're just gonna have to really kind of just put it out there. So.
Yep. And I just had to. I wanted to go back to something that you said. Be comfortable in your own skin
Mhm.
and stand in your truth. Like that. That's a bar, and there's so much to that. Even going back to the conversation we were having last week, if without the right knowledge or without the right experience, you can't, right, you can't stand in your truth because you don't necessarily know what the truth is, and you have to have the experience to know, based on what the client wants and based on what you're selling, this isn't going to fit. So I think, like I said, that's definitely a bar, just again, inside of tech and out, to stand in your truth and be comfortable. So and that's, again, with all the challenges that are faced, that's a priority these days.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
real quick, let's just go in here. We see Professor Black Ops says, what is your thoughts on Fedramp?
So I normally don't deal with the Fedramp. So what exactly are you asking for? With the Fedramp? Are you talking about as far as like the challenges with dealing with the customer per se, or what exactly are you asking for in reference to Fedramp?
Professor Black Ops, if you're in the chat, keep eh,
So
please.
what I've dealt with FedRAMP is it's been a challenge as far as like getting customers to buy off on certain things because of their limitations, like especially on the intelligence side. Now, I don't normally deal with the per se with the sales part of it because that's more on the sales side. But as far as like engineering and everything else, once we see the bill of materials come through, I'll call a mandatory meeting between myself, my engineering and delivery team, and the account team, and say, okay, whatever you sold, I need to understand what was the vision that you painted for the customer. So that's where, and that part is not a FedRamp, type of thing. It's more of a delivery, design, engineering. So if you can kind of expound on your question, that'd be great.
Yeah, waiting for him to respond.
Okay.
Let's see. L Style says, "Good evening, everyone." L Style, you won a humble bundle book bundle last week. Um, please send me a message with how to contact you so I can send over that bundle. Again, you won the hacking or programming bundle. Let me know how to reach out to you so I can get that to you. Makeshift, another friend of the show, says, with you having worked in so many areas in tech, what has been your favorite and why?
My favorite, honestly, has been, well, I really love data center because you can do so much with that. It just has a lot of different swim lanes. But I'm starting to really understand and have a solid understanding and liking for cloud because you have so many different opportunities within cloud. You've got cloud security, you've got on-premise cloud. What does that look like? Public facing cloud. What does that look like? And then automation. You have so many different things where you can actually kind of to go into, whereas traditional routing and switching, it's so much that you can do with just routing. I mean, like BGP has been around since what, 30 years, probably a little bit more than that. It's not that much. It's not that much of a change per se. And I like to be not necessarily on the bleeding edge, but I want to be able to have a little bit of flexibility in what I can offer and present to customers. So.
Okay. And Dira says, yeah, I'm back to look at data center again.
No, no, no. That's my mentee. She is a such a positive person. I really enjoy talking to her. Stick with
Yeah.
your security. She don't need to flip flop. We need to stick with her. Have her stick with the security.
Yeah, like I said, she's one of the people who spoke very highly of you. So
Thank you.
and then Professor Black Ops did come back and says, any challenges, governments asking for FedRAMP approved clouds, also auditor checking and approving your setups, are there any challenges of dealing with auditors?
Yes, yes. Matter of fact, I am dealing with an auditor for one of my intelligence customers, and it's not only just that auditor, but it's also the security team because I'm having to meet their requirements before we even try to look at implementing the technology in the field. And that's something that it's very new for me right now. It's something that I've never had to face with, just being truthful and honest. So I have a mentor that's been around for years, and she actually is helping me through that process. What we're finding out, one of the unique challenges is the fact that the on the security side is so much that you have to account for that one is not documented correctly. Two, when it comes to each vendor, putting their equipment in, all of those security parameters have to be in place. And sometimes, something will come up at the last minute. It's like, oh my goodness, where did this come from? And so we're having to kind of scramble and go back, and kind of research that. But luckily, I have somebody. I had enough sense to say, hey, I'm struggling here. I need some help, and my manager went and found somebody to help me with that, and it's been a blessing in disguise because now I don't have to take on that responsibility of really trying to maneuver my way through that water because it's something new that I've never really had to face with in my career. So,
Okay. See, and you touched on something else with the mentorship thing, and we're gonna get to that too. But but before we do that, again, ladies and gentlemen, just to reset the room, this is InfoSec Unplugged. I am here with Erica Cooper, aka Tech Lady, on social media, on Twitter. So if you have any questions for her or have any questions, you guys know what to do. Ask the questions, keep it respectful, and we're going to continue on. So Erica, you were talking about the cloud a second ago.
Hmm.
And you were talking about, the excitement, enjoying doing it, and
Yeah.
I guess some of the exciting challenges with it. Do you care to elaborate about that? Because even though we all know, a lot of us in the tech field know that the cloud is obviously the next move or the actual move in the now. A lot of people still don't have the understanding about I guess, the importance of it, or the fact that this is how most of their stuff operates. So if you wanted to just touch on that, and then we're going to get into the thing about automation, because there's a big debate going on whether or not we should be scared of automation because of job security. So let's start with the cloud first.
Okay, so here's what I see, and I saw this about 10 years ago. The industry right now is making a dynamic shift. You can see it. I work for a hardware based company, and right now that hardware based company, and I don't care if it's Cisco or any other company that you want to talk about, they are having a hard time trying to keep up with companies that can provide on demand services for, like, let's say platform as a service or infrastructure as a service or SaaS or software as a service. So they are having a hard time trying to keep up with that. So how do you combat that? You either learn the technology, and that means pick up a trade either with Azure, AWS, GCP, some of the big clouds. Right now, it's an important thing to actually learn how to move your data center into the cloud infrastructure, because those data centers, that legacy going into a cold data center, that stuff is falling by the wayside. I mean, like, my company is starting to shut down some of their data centers. Some of the other bigger companies are starting to do the same, because that massive footprint is just it's not there. It's not the need is not there anymore, and so you're going to have to at some point learn how to make the shift. And I saw it, right after I got my CCIE in data center, because I was like, okay, so we've got all these, nice little shiny big, Catalyst or Nexus 9K sitting in a data center. That's great, but like, what goes on after that? And
Mhm.
so customers started coming up with their own requirement. Like, I want to be able to put this workload into the infrastructure, or put this application into the cloud. Can you do that from a hardware perspective? And you can't. So now you
Right.
got to be able to, be able to make that shift, that dynamic shift, either on-prem cloud or hybrid cloud scenarios. Most of the scenarios I've worked with are in a closed environment, so the internet connectivity is not there. You're going to have to build your on-premise cloud in the infrastructure that you have, and then have a direct connection back out to the public facing cloud portal. But it's going to be kind of like a nailed up tunnel.
Right.
But that's pretty much what is needed. I mean, because you're putting your applications there, and it's not going to sit in those physical servers like a Dell or Cisco UCS or Compact or whatever, HP. But yeah, though, it's just you're starting to make that dynamic shift. So you're going to have to either get on board, or you're going to get forced to be left behind. And I saw that twice in my career now. When I started out at the voice side, and those traditional voice engineers didn't want to take up data and learn how to, routing and switching. So now they were struggling. And so now this is the second time I've seen this, where you're either going to have to get on board with going into the cloud, or you're going to be at a loss. And here's the thing: security is critical in all of that. You have to, because I don't care what platform you use, throw that up there, whether it's cloud, on-premise cloud, you have to be able to secure that data, because it's
Yep.
no longer the keys of the kingdom are riding at the for the equipment. It's going to be how you properly secure that data. That's going to be your most critical path at that point.
Absolutely. And for those who are in the tech field, I highly recommend taking a cloud fundamentals,
Hmm.
right? Whether it's AWS CCP or Azure,
Yeah.
whatever their fundamentals course is. Heck, you can take CompTIA. There's that
Yeah.
bad word, but the Cloud Plus certification. Um, I highly recommend, because you learn about those things in those fundamental classes. You
Absolutely.
learn about the advantages, and
Right.
honestly, when you get to read or learn about the advantages, you understand that, no, from from a security side of things or from a tech side of things, your job's not necessarily in danger because you have, there the scalability, like we talked about the scalability of the cloud, right? So you have to be able to have it configured to ramp up and slow down based on needs. Security, it presents a whole bunch of different challenges. Just like look at a lot of the recent breaches between whether it's the APIs or S3 buckets that weren't secure.
Right.
So, and again, Microsoft or Azure and GCP, Google Cloud, they all have different terms for it. But once you understand the basics, it's just a matter of, it's almost like learning Python programming
Mm-hmm.
and then going, okay, so Python, now I'm gonna look at Ruby and then kind of just see the difference in them, right? There are some differences, but at its core, the structure is the same. So
That's true.
so I highly recommend anybody who, like you said, get on the train or get left, because this is where it's going.
Right.
And one of the advantages to it, and benefits of it, is automation.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, when they hear automation, me included, like maybe this time last year or 2 years ago, you started hearing automation and it's like, oh gosh, right? Because I remember going on LinkedIn one day and someone put up, I forgot who the vendor was, and I don't really want to say their names, but they did like an automated pen test, and it was a video of an automated pen test, and I'm like, right? I cussed enough last week, so I gotta keep it clean this week.
Nah, say your piece, man. Say your piece.
But it was like, yeah, but I remember seeing that and I'm going, are you serious, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then like I said, and then I started looking into it. I started researching. John Helmus, he wrote a book on AWS pen testing, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm fine, right? And then again, paying attention to stuff and seeing like the vulnerable S3 bucket and SSRF vulnerabilities and APIs being breached, it was like, oh, you just secured my job for at least another 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
So I'm good. But you being the cloud, the more of the cloud, I won't say expert. I try to stay away from that word, but you being more of the cloud expert, please let the people know that if we should be scared of automation.
So that's a good question. So I'm having that same question right now with the engineers in my organization, because they're just like your more traditional engineers. I will say this much: you shouldn't be, scared of it, but you should be able to know how to work within it. So I'm right now teaching myself Python. Why am I starting out with Python? It's kind of like the end all be all for all of the cloud platforms. You can also kind of branch out into Terraform and everything else, but I just felt like Python was the way to kind of cut my teeth on that, learning that for cloud, because I can interchange that with APIs within Cisco or anything else. I tried to get Ansible, and I just couldn't really. Ansible wasn't my thing, but I can really kind of understand Python programming. Plus, there's a lot of different good reference books out there. I've got a lot of them on my website that I had to kind of use for Python. So they kind of just get some rudimentary, understanding of what's going on with the technology and everything else. I'm not a programmer. I'm not, but I definitely feel like in order for me to be able to be marketable and stay current within the field, it's not going to be, and like I said, I started out routing and switching. Now let me be very clear with that. That meant I took my console cable, took a laptop, go in the data center, plug it in, and let's go. Let's do configs. But now I can spin up a lot of different technologies. Like, for example, when I do my cloud deployments for my customer, that's all 100% Python scripts and PowerShell scripts that I'm writing. And I can get that done. And now, I mean, my first install, that was a little bit of a challenge, but now I can get this done in 16, a full like deployment, meaning the infrastructure built out, the VMs, everything else. I can get that done in almost about 12 hours. That I mean, like, we're talking about the software install, updates, firmware patches, everything in 12
No,
hours. That's not bad. That's
yeah, and
not
then
bad.
you have the with the microservices and Lambda functions and all of that.
Correct.
That's also a major thing. But you said it, and my petty kicked in because I'm sure you've seen it where they were like you have to be like a super programmer to basically do anything in tech. So
Yeah.
I was gonna ask the question like, so do you have to know programming? But you already beat me to it. So, but again, it's a good, like I tell people all the time, in all seriousness, unless you're going to be a coder or a software developer, um, programming isn't mandatory, but it is a good weapon to have in your back pocket.
Absolutely.
Especially if you plan on moving on up in your career, it
Mhm.
it it definitely helps, especially like for the pen testing side. Yeah, if I want to script out if I want to script out and automate a bunch of scans or stuff like that, that's very helpful. But also as you move on into your career, especially moving into the AppSec side of things, you're going to have to know how to kind of understand at least what the code is doing and saying.
Right.
So it's definitely beneficial to have that knowledge, but it's not mandatory.
No,
So
it's not. And the thing is that my mentor, I just recently picked up a mentor. This woman is phenomenal. She goes in and she talks to different, business units within the organization, but she also talks to other major company like directors and CIOs and CTOs. She was telling me that, when because she started out same as I, routing and switching. And matter of fact, her CCIE is in the for routing and switching. What she did was she started like really learning scripting, and now she's able to have a different conversation with different developers, so she can come back internally within our organization and make the code better for the customer. Does that make sense? So
yes,
it's more of being able to talk that lingo, and then also delivering on that. And you can't do that with a very narrow scope on just only knowing one aspect of the technology field. Because you can know BGP or routing or data center or SDN or ACI, and that's great. But if you're forced to have a situation where it's a use case and you've got to get something up pretty quickly, then you need to do what? You're going to have to come up with a script and be able to push that out. And can that script communicate back to your REST APIs on the device, or what are we looking at? So you're gonna have to be able to, what I would call, be a little bit more, not necessarily a jack of all trades, because that leads to burnout. I'm not talking about that, but just being able to function within that environment, because you
hmm
don't want to be like, okay, well, you only know this, because then that could be, you almost like writing yourself out.
right. No, absolutely, and that burnout is absolutely real because that it happens. It's going to happen a couple times in your career. So if you know the
More than a
pit,
couple.
yeah, if you know the pitfalls to avoid, yeah, definitely dodge those bullets. So with now you talked about the mentorship, and I like the fact that you said even in all of your experience
Mhm.
you still went out and sought a mentor.
Correct.
um I'm one of the I guess you could call me a non-believer who became one. um because I don't know if you heard the story. Like I literally, like that wolf behind there was literally me. Like I was a lone wolf for so many years because I tried the mentoring thing,
Yeah.
call it ego or pride, but when people didn't respond to me, I was just like I was like Michael Jordan in The Last Dance. Like I took it personally. um
Okay.
and I just figured I was going to grind, and every time you saw me, every time you heard my name, I'm dropping 40, I'm dropping 50 on your head, and you were going to know who I was. And back to what we were just saying, that led to burnout before I knew what burnout was, right?
Right.
I caught myself sometimes like staring at the screen going, I have no idea what the hell is going on here. Who even am I, right? And in the course of the last couple years, honestly, I would say probably 2019, right before COVID, 2020. That's when I started to reach out more. And actually, if he's still here, it was Marcus J. Carey who kind of gave me the different outlook, sort of like you did in that conversation that we had on Twitter. But Marcus was like, maybe they wanted to see what you were willing to do on your own. Maybe, maybe you didn't ask the right questions. Uh, and then I started to think about it, and it was like, well, if I looked at them to be a mentor, it's because they are really great at what they do. And usually the ones who are really great at what they do are booked and busy. So
Yeah.
it finally took me to come back around and go, okay. So I say that to say, don't be like me. don't go like the first 14 years of your career without a mentor. It's so much easier when you start finding mentors and doing like networking. So again, like I said, I like the fact that you talked about the fact that not only are you a mentor, but even with all of your experience, you sought out mentorship. So if you could again speak to the importance of that, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, so the importance of a mentor, and it's also a mentor and a sponsor. So I'll give you let's start with the mentor. So the reason why I went out and sought to be not only a mentor to, let's say, Dear Footman, CCIE by 30, but then also I needed a mentor too, is because for my personal growth, I knew I knew my experience, my technical experience was solid. I knew that anything you've been able to to accomplish from a technology perspective, no problem. I've got you covered on that. But it's the how do I get into those rooms that I'm not really there.
Mm,
It was like how do I progress my career? How do I get to like a distinguished engineer or engineering fellow within the company? Well, that's where I need a mentor to kind of coach me up and say, okay, let's look at how you show up in meetings. Let's look at how you show up to your colleagues. Do you give back? Do you make people around you better? Because it's not about going alone, like you said, the lone wolf approach.
right.
You can go further if people will be able to give you some pointers. And I promise you, though, mentorship can also lead into sponsorship. And sponsorship will be where like if let's say someone's talking to Davin, like yourself, and they're saying, hey, I need someone that has data center experience, cloud, and I need a technical leader.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. I might not be in the room with you when they're talking to you,
Yeah.
but you know what? You're going to sponsor me because I know Erica, because
Yes.
I've talked to her, I've worked with her. And so therefore that's that sponsorship that it's very critical for people of color and women and men of color like yourself, black men. It's just like we need to have that sponsorship to to say, hey, it's not really a handout. It's just to say, hey, I need you to sponsor me and put me in those give me an opportunity to show you what I can do.
Nah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's important. And the reason why I give back for mentoring is as a senior engineer, as a senior technical lead, it's important for me to give back to the community. As I get through, like any type of position or whatever else, I can't be the only person through that door. That's not
Talk about
productive.
it.
That's
Yes.
not productive. That's counterproductive. So therefore, yes, I want to see, and I'm going to be biased in this point. I want to see people like you, Dewan Lightfoot, John. Goodness, I know him because he's always putting these food pictures up. He's
JB,
always,
John Breath.
yeah, JB.
So
Yeah,
he's
he's
in
always
here.
doing the workout
Cyber,
stuff and everything.
yes. Yeah.
It's important to see people like those individuals I name, and then De'Ara to come through that door, because I'm hoping that what will happen is it creates an opportunity for them to give back. And
Yes.
that's why I want to make sure that I'm leaving that legacy there, because I have a lot to offer. And it's just like it's just me giving back to the community, because if I just keep it here and just keep it at Cisco and keep
Yep.
it within my confines, that's counterproductive. But I want to be able to say, okay, hey, I was able to touch Dear or Davin or Dewan and say, I made a positive impact on their life. And that for me is important. So
Yes,
not
absolutely.
everybody thinks like that, but that for me personally, that's important.
No, you're absolutely right. And just to say it real quick, JB, I probably wouldn't have gotten on that try hack me thing
Yeah.
if it wasn't for him, because not that he wants me telling his business, but when the advent of cyber thing started, they used one of his videos,
Okay.
and they reached out to him and had a conversation. And after after he set up his stuff and he was good, he said, by the way, you might want to go check out what Davin's doing.
He sponsored you.
And yeah, you know what I'm saying? And now I started noticing, he told me that he did it. I thanked him, of course. But then you start to notice, oh, they're watching my videos. They're liking my tweets. And then shortly before the weekend, it was like, hey, do you want to do a video? And it was like, oh, absolutely. So again, yeah, that sponsorship goes a very long way, because you have people who can advocate for you when you can't speak for yourself.
Correct.
So that's super important. So we're just gonna catch up in some of the stuff in the comments real quick. So speaking of JB, he says the CompTIA cabal strikes again when I talked about doing a CompTIA. We have Manny Bites says amazing. Infinite
Thank you, Manny.
Infinite Improbability says had a quick chat with Omar Santos. AI and machine learning and cybersecurity still has some maturing to do. That said, cybersecurity is not going away anytime soon. It's just going to have a paradigm shift. Absolutely, no.
Yeah.
Security is here to stay. It's
Yeah.
just whether or not
Yeah.
you're moving with it.
Correct.
Then he also says Law 11 and the 48 Laws of Power. Learn, what does he say? Learn to keep people dependent on you. Again, it depends on how you use it, because a lot of people use the 48 laws of power in a really misogynistic asshole type way. But I agree, if you use it in the right way, it can definitely be helpful. And then he
Right.
also says law 18, do not build fortresses to protect yourself. No, absolutely, you have to build to protect your community. And then says, like Aaron Bird, she wanted to be in the room where it happened. And then we have another friend of the show, Mary Galloway, says hashtag sponsorship.
Hey,
Um,
Mary, what's going on?
Manny says amen, and then says grow yourself and those around you. No, you definitely have to do that. Rachel Toback said it best when I interviewed her. She said, as you're building yourself up, bring people along with you in the journey.
Right.
Um, there he goes. JB says, I'm glad to be known as the food workout guy. Low key is high praise.
I mean, every time I'm on my timeline, he's like putting up some food or working out. I'm just like,
Yeah, I know. I,
relate.
I, I
He's
need
cool
I,
though.
I need sponsorship on finding the time of day to keep up with all that. But the one thing, especially now, because I'm sure you've seen it, especially on Twitter, with the different voices and the different echo chambers and people who want things to be their way, right? So they say they want mentorship, but their idea of mentorship is basically, be there when I call, how I call, and tell me what I want to hear. Tell me I can get six figures, in 6 months or less. Tell me all the good stuff. Don't tell me I have to work hard. Um, Deira and I were talking about that last week, about how challenging it's been. But I think the goal of it all, I think the reason why you do it and why I continue to do it and why John and Mary and Ty Wilson,
Mhm.
Deira, I can go on and on with the different names, is the passion to help others.
Right.
So you spoke on it briefly, but I guess you could talk about, if you could talk about, where that passion comes from.
So for me personally, I'm going to say this much: representation matters. See, when I was coming in, as far as the IT world, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me, and I still don't. And so, therefore, I wanted to embrace that change and then make a difference. And hopefully, I can try to be making a positive impact, on someone else, trying to either get into IT or try to help them with their career. Because I've been in industry, like I said, for 20 plus years. I've stepped on some landmines, some of them strategically placed, some of them I wasn't paying attention to,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And so therefore, if I can help somebody say, yeah, no, let's, probably let's try to get you focused on this, or no, I wouldn't try to do that. Don't engage because it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. If I can help you with that, that's perfect. I mean, that's for me, that's a win because it means that I'm doing my job as a technical lead, and then giving back to the community. Why I'm passionate about it is because, like I said, I didn't see a lot of people coming up that look like me. I mean, the first time I ever had a African American woman boss or an African American male boss was what, 8 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and that's pretty. That's kind of sad. I'm
Yeah.
glad they were there, but it's also sad. And so, I mean, what they poured into me is, the positive things is try to, help someone else out. And I just never took, I never forgot about that. And so I'm really passionate about, teaching people how to get into IT, or kind of helping them out. Cause I've seen it where there's just noise that comes in from Twitter. And I'm gonna call out my little mentee, Miss Diera. She tries her best to kind of, decipher some of the noise.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a losing battle. Sometimes you have people that will take what she says and, kind of, listen what she's saying. But I think it's just more or less, people need to understand when they get a mentor, they have to come to the table with what they want to do. What do they want to, what are the goals? It can't be, well, I just want to get into cybersecurity. I want to get into cloud. Okay, fine. That's great. But you got to narrow that scope down.
Yes.
Otherwise you're going to get overwhelmed, and then you wind up leaving and get frustrated. And that's not productive.
Yep.
That's not productive at all. And so that's why you need a mentor, but you also have to do your part and be mentee ready, and everything. So it's just going to be, putting that energy towards that. What I
Yeah.
will say with the noise that comes in from social media, I would recommend that you really vet the people that you're communicating, that you're taking advice from. Watch them from afar and see how they move. Are they intentional? Are they positive? Or are they
Yes.
just running their mouth? You can
Yes.
tell the real ones out there. I mean, trust me, you can tell the real ones. And I will say this much: not the real ones are not going to broadcast, "Hey, let me pound my chest and look at me. I'm doing this, and I'm the." Yeah, that's just counterproductive. It's a waste of time. There was a gentleman that I think he was in your chat earlier, Marcus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's very knowledgeable on security and scripting and everything else, and automation, but
Mm-hmm.
he's not one to throw that up in your face. The
Right.
real ones are going to be kind of move in silence, and you just watch how they present themselves, what their tweets are talking about. It's not all this, hey, get in here and get your CISSP as an entry level cert. No, I saw somebody put.
Hold on. Ladies and gentlemen, Sister Cooper is taking us to church right now. I need y'all to definitely pay attention to what she is saying. Lord have mercy. I need y'all to listen to what she is speaking the gospel right now. So please, I didn't mean to cut you off, but please continue.
Now I saw somebody on Twitter that had put like, get your VCAP, and I'm sitting there like, I'm a data center CCIE. My study partner and I, we took that VCAP exam not once but twice. We failed it the first time as two data center CCIEs, and then we had to get that shore up the knowledge of where we were coming up short on. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, that's not an entry level cert. I don't care what you want to say. And see, that's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
It's like the people that they come in there and they talk this nonsense on these Twitter spaces or in Twitter.
Mhm.
And it's just like, okay, I really, I really want to say something, but I make it a point of not to engage because it's not worth it. It's not worth my disrupting my peace. Now, some days
And,
I really want to say something, but yeah, it's not worth it. Not worth
yeah.
the frustration.
And Deira said, I just saw it. Where is it? She said, yeah, she hung up her cape. No, you know, but I'm the same way. It's almost like old school when you used to play double when you're doing the double dutch. You have to find the right
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
to jump in. And there are three things I wanted to add on to that. One, when you talked about the representation matters and having a person of color as a supervisor in a leadership role in your career. Um, it's the same way for me. Like when I came in, the running, it was a joke, but it was a joke that was one of those laugh to keep from crying situations, because the
Right.
joke was always like, I saw another black person and it was like a unicorn looking at another unicorn. Like that was right. That's how I used to joke about it. But in the back of my mind, it hurt because it was just like, you have all these people here who probably weren't even qualified to be here. They probably got here because of networking or nepotism or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
And you have and now you literally have people who are qualified, but they're people of color and they're hard to come by. It it took 3 years after I saw the first other black man
Mm-hmm.
in tech, I saw a black woman,
Yeah.
right? And it was just like it was the same thing. And then you really put it in perspective. It was a 3 year gap.
Yeah.
I didn't see anybody that looked like me. And then even in leadership, my direct supervisor, my first direct supervisor that was a person of color, uh, was maybe 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the first woman of color who was my boss was probably like the year after that. And in all of those situations, I had different experiences, right?
Right.
So you had some who were like, "Nah, I'm gonna bring you under my wing, and we're gonna build this up together." And then you had some where it was almost like they were keeping the secret sauce to themselves. So
Yeah.
it's discouraging because it's like, I came I came up where I didn't it didn't come my journey wasn't easy. So when I decided that I was going to do this and share the information, it's the same thing. Like my goal is, I don't want you to be like me. I want you to, like I tell my kids, I don't want you to be like me. I want you to be better than me.
Better.
So I want to help you along that path
Mm-hmm.
and show you, hey, that's a landmine right there. You want to avoid that, or do this instead. And now what you're saying with the nonsense on Twitter in your sermon a second ago, um, it's harder to do that now because you have people who, because again, you're not telling them what they want to hear and you're not a part of that echo chamber, they're drowning out the voices. So they're drowning out Deara's voice, they're drowning out my voice, they're drowning out John's voice. Marcus J. Carey, right? You talk about him, like, yeah, he's one of those that you don't, until you get to know him,
Right.
you don't know him, right? And then
Right.
when you talk to him and you're like you get to have a
Wow.
conversation. Like we have a conversation. Like I had him on the show and we were talking and I'm like, dog, what?
Yeah.
Teach me, right? And if you, but the thing is, if you do that, he will tell you. He won't give you the keys. He won't give you he won't do it for you, but he'll tell you, dog, go learn this right now.
Right.
Cause I remember we had a conversation. He's like, you need to learn Go. And I'm like, yeah, it's on my list. And he said, no,
Like now. Yeah.
you need to go learn it now. And I was like, I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna drop what I'm doing, and I'm gonna go do that. But that speaks to, that goes back to my point. If you speak, or JB speaks, Marcus speaks, Ty Wilson, Mary Galloway, if y'all say to me, that's it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a generational thing because we came up a different way.
Right.
And that's a whole different story. But we came up a certain way, so it's almost like all right, cool. If like I said to you respectfully, you're an OG in the game. So we came up when the OGs speak.
Right.
Listen. Because the OGs ain't gonna repeat themselves.
No.
And if you miss out, that's on you. And there's different consequences for not listening when the OGs speak. Now you have these people who listen to whoever they want to listen to because they just want to be agreed with. Yeah. So again, that's my spiel with that. Let's see. Mary Galloway says, Erica, you are amazing. I love seeing us get that CCIE. It was
Thank
a
you.
goal of mine after CCNA, but decided against it. Right. And this is what I'm talking about. Right. Like, we don't have to be jealous of each other. We don't have to do that crabs in the barrel thing.
No.
Right. Like, if you win, in a sense, we all win because of that mentality of, I'm gonna try to bring these people with me. If you have a community of people who are of that like mind, you know that stepping stone is now going to be easier for everybody else, because you're not holding back the secret sauce. You're not keeping that secret to yourself. You're going to do it, and you're going to go back and tell Dear, or you're going to tell me and go, hey, this is how you need to move. And back to what you were saying about the advocating. Also, when you get your foot in that door, you're going to open the door and go,
Yes.
these are the people you should pay attention to.
Right.
So this is what we have to do. This is what we need to do more of in 2022. And Deara says, folks today value clout over wisdom.
That's true. That's true. And it's easy to look at all the nice shiny things that they've gotten that people put up there, but it's like, okay, tell me, how did you get this? And then it's like, are you willing to put in the work? There's a famous boxer, you may know, Floyd Mayweather. He always talks about hard work, dedication,
Hard work, dedication.
and
Yep.
it's like, and discipline and belief. And it's like, okay, what are you going to do to get to where you need to go? And I remember my first session with De'Ara, right? And I was telling her, I said, look, when get in a situation where you're trying to move around in different places, you got to do an assessment. Sure, I wouldn't pay attention to, the things that you're very good at, because you're good at that. Do an assessment on those, those areas where you need to kind of improve upon, and then knock it out the park, and then make your decision. Then at that point, the term I use, I was like, then you can use that heat map wherever, and go from there. But it's just like, for me, that crabs in, like you said, that crabs in a barrel. I don't have time for that. If you're winning, if Mary is winning, or De'Ara's winning, or JB or Marcus, I'm going to tweet. I'm like, hey, yeah, let's go. Because you've seen, I've tweeted some of the stuff out, and I'm not even in the video. The video. I'm just like, hey, okay, we got an interview. Let me go and tweet that out. Or Dewan, you've seen that. It's just like, it's not worth the time, the energy, or the effort to sit up here and try to put it, like, well, I can't let them get ahead of me. No, there's too much. It's too much room, too much space to be letting, to try to snuff out somebody's light. And it's just like, ain't nobody got time for that. I don't.
But I also think it goes back to the mentality of, I think we all came from a place of without at one point or another, right? Not necessarily poor, not necessarily in the hood or anything like that, but I think we all came from a spot where it was like, we all came from somewhere that we don't want to go back to.
Oh no.
Right?
Yeah, no, I'm originally from Chicago, so I understand what you're saying. Okay. It's like, I've been there where where lights get cut out, and stuff like that, and you're trying to figure out where your next meal come in. Yeah, I ain't trying to go back to that.
Exactly. So the last thing I want to do, in the times that we live in now, where people are dropping like flies, and people are unemployed and struggling, like you said, trying to figure out where the next meal is, especially after 2020 when things shut down and people got laid off and stuff like that. The last thing I want to do is tear another person down of any background. That's the last thing I want to do. So, and Ty says people want mentorship. Excuse me. People want mentorship where they are padded from the reality of the industry. That's cyber fragility. No, that's a bar. Because again, I've talked to people where they're like, I want to get into cybersecurity. All right, cool. This is the path that I recommend you should take. Nah, but I want to do this instead. Or this person told me that if I do this, I'll be able to get to the bag quicker. And I'm like, that's not realistic. And if you are one of those who hit the lotto that got to the bag quick, what's going to happen in 6 months? Or again, we work and we live in a time where a lot of people are employed under that at-will employment So
Mm-hmm.
there's they can fire you without any reason at any given time.
Right.
So what happens when they look at you and go, you're not you're not living up to the expectations?
Mm-hmm.
And tech and cybersecurity, regardless of what you may think, it's a real tight knit community, especially in the community in which you live in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like if you're trying to get a tech job in Atlanta, and let's say you're in the fintech space, so you want to go look for at First Data, or you want to go look at this place or that place, those they talk.
Oh yeah.
So now when you go to get a job and you cheated your way to the bag and they let you go, and now you try to go work for someone else because this is the experience you've had. So you have fintech experience, you're going to go get a job at another fintech shop, and then they have their daily meetups or whatever when they go to get together, like the CISOs get together or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. They go, "Hey, have you it says you this guy worked for you," and they tell you not, hell no.
Yeah.
You done blackballed yourself. So my thing is, do the work, do the work. Trust me, the bag will come. Because if you don't, if you're just rushing to get to the bag, you're gonna get it and you're gonna lose it, and it's gonna take you even longer to get back to it. And now a lot of people who rush to get to the bag, your lifestyle changed overnight. So now you're like, oh, I'm gonna go get this Mercedes and I'm gonna get this big house and I'm gonna do this. And then guess what? When your salary get cut by 2/3,
Yeah. Yeah, I see. I've been there before. Where, so I used to work for a couple of .com companies. Matter of fact, one of the .com companies that I used to work for, they closed its doors, and they still, to this day, still owe me my check for when I had to travel for them to North Carolina from Atlanta.
Mhm,
That expense report and my last paycheck.
mhm.
This was over 12 years ago. They closed the door, didn't open it up, and everybody that didn't have their check, beforehand, gone. So
Yeah,
now what? So now what you gonna do?
right.
What you gonna do? And so you got to be prepared to. And that's the thing. If people aren't willing to do the work, I don't really want to, waste my energy and time, because my time and your time is
Talk
the
about
most valuable asset.
it. Mhm.
It ain't about the money, because the money is going to come, because the money is how you negotiate. And that's the other thing. I really get frustrated with people with, if you're going in the cloud, you only got to do AWS. No, there's other things that you could do. And
Absolutely.
why not? Why limit yourself? Why limit yourself? Why not learn all three platforms, and then you can really command the bag?
Yeah, because you're versatile.
Yeah. But a
And the
lot
other
of people want to get in there and they want to, sit up there, and it's like, I want to just jump. I want to go from step A to step, G, and I want to get my bag, and that's it. And I'm just like, you're going to fail. You're going to
right.
completely fail.
And my thing is this, back to what we were talking about, getting and maintaining the bag. Not I'm not trying to brag, I'm not trying to boast, but I was having a conversation with my therapist today, and we were talking about jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her I'm at a point in my career where I'm not worried about being unemployed
Yeah.
because my years of experience, my
Mm-hmm.
certifications, my platform, whatever, I can I can leave my job amicably because you don't want to burn any bridges.
Nope.
But I can leave my job today and I know in a matter of a couple weeks I'm going to land on my feet.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get that by rushing to the bag. You get
Nope.
that by building your resume, building that portfolio, right?
Right.
You have you have all these years of experience from hardware with your data center, with your routing experience, and now you're moving into the cloud. That that moves with you. That knowledge, not on top of that knowledge, moves with you.
Right.
So don't rush to it. Enjoy the ride. I'm not telling you to put up with any type of disrespect or any type of discrimination. Know your worth, but
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the ride as you're going along the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's see. Dara says, speaking of blackballing, stop being a jerk in the community. The tech world is small. The OG disrespecting can do more for you than Betty with the buzzwords telling you what you want to hear. See, See?
What
Another
you say, Betty with the buzzwords?
Yep, Eddie with the buzzwords. Yep. Tanea says 100. Let's um JB says a lot of my success that came in my junior years came from being willing to absorb the lessons learned from the senior folks I was working with. So I didn't make the same mistakes. And again, this comes with time, right? You can't if you're jumping, if you're just trying to jump to one thing, you're not gonna learn those lessons, right? Like there were a lot of things that led to me being successful now that were failures in the beginning, right? Like I said, I remember when I someone asked about the CEH. It is a good that path that you did, JM. That is a good route to get started. But I would also look at the CompTIA Pen Test Plus because that'll give you a little bit more technical knowledge than the CEH. The CEH is kind of a baseline. Don't want to disrespect EC Council, but if you're gonna do that, you could also look at the Pen Test Plus and save yourself a bunch of money, like Geico. So, but back to the CEH. I followed that path. So when I got the CEH, I was like, man, you can't tell me nothing. You
Okay.
can't tell me nothing, right? And I got my first pen test gig, right? I luckily I grabbed some hands-on experience along the way because I always feel like because I wasn't college educated, I always felt like I was the weakest link. So I had to make sure I could stand on my own. But the first time I was on a pen test engagement on my own and ran into some really bad difficulties, I ended up having to stay up to like 2, 3 in the morning to troubleshoot, but the deadline was still the deadline. So
Right.
now that was probably my first real experience of burnout because I had I think I lived off of like 8 hours of sleep for that entire engagement.
Oh
Right.
wow.
But guess what happened the next time? Oh no, I'm gonna need all the IP addresses. I'm gonna need all of this stuff whitelisted. I'm gonna need to test the VPN before we even get on the kickoff,
Right.
right? These are things that you have to know along the way. So yeah, you make mistakes, but it all depends. It's what you do with it, right? I tell my kids all the time, it's not about how you messed up; it's how you recover.
Yeah, facts. I mean, that's the thing. It's like instead of it's amazing how so many people they get discouraged on if they, let's say they fail a test or they made a couple of little mistakes here. And I'm sitting there like, you really didn't, fail. You just had a learning lesson,
Yeah,
So
a
change. It's
loss,
a mindset shift.
a loss, a loss
It's
ain't a loss. It's a lesson.
yeah. Now where you fail at is if you just quit. That's where you fail at because it's like, all right, I give up.
Yes. Yes. And then CW InfoSec says you can rebuild bridges, but you can't get the time back it took to make them in the first place.
Facts.
Right. Do it right the first time.
Yeah.
And then Mary says, Betty though. so Erica, I see you rocking the merch. I see you got the shirt
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
So talk about what led to you starting CloudXpertSolution.
So I started CloudXpertSolution because I wanted to document my journey. That's one thing I didn't do very well when I was doing my data center CCIE was, when I was studying for the data center, I just didn't, I had all my notes together, but I just didn't document anything. And so this time I said, well, you know what? I'm going to document every single step of this journey. I'm going to put my notes out there because I know I can't be the only one deploying out Azure. I know I can't be the only one putting up, let's say AWS and connecting it between multi-cloud, multi-tenant solutions. So why don't we just document it? Because a lot of times the vendors, like for example, my company, Cisco or AWS, their documentation isn't exactly well versed. They miss some steps. So you have to, wind up having to kind of piece something together. So I figured, let me document everything that I'm doing. It's going to help the community out. And then also what my plan is to put some training content out there, because that's the other thing is that as a woman of color, I don't see anybody that's putting training content out there that's value training content. For let's say AWS or Azure build out from the ground infrastructure up. So like, why not let me go in and take that step into that lane and start putting my content out there because I've got a lot to offer.
Yeah.
And I got a lot to offer besides just tweeting stuff. So I wanted to put something out there, to help the community out. So that's where you get the blog and everything else. I'm going to start. I can't divulge any of my customer information, but I'm going to start putting my when I get my training course completed for building out Azure Stack from the ground up. All that's going to go on the GitHub repository, and that way everybody can kind of pull down and give me some feedback. Hey, let's add this, let's add that, let's test it out. I've got my lab halfway set up. For Azure Stack and Azure and connecting out to the portal. So that's the plan, is to just put some content out there, to help the community. So that's why I started the blog, and it's just really just to help someone out on their cloud journey, because I know I can't be the only one starting out, not from the ground up. So.
And just and another side benefit of doing the blogs and stuff like that, and I keep telling people this is a cheat code. The blog definitely, the timing of that was perfect. My son is playing Xbox and the Xbox achievement thing just dinged. But the cheat code to that is it's a resume builder.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can speak to your experience there. And also now you have a point of reference. So you don't always have to Google, you don't have to waste a lot of time Googling now, because you're like, oh, who wrote that? That's right, I did. Right? I've done subtle flexes sometimes at my job where they're like, oh man, I got to configure Kali Linux. And I'm like, oh, I think I have a link for that.
Yeah.
Right. And now that they pay attention to all of that stuff. So, and then the other thing about the content creation, if you see an opening, take it. Like I saw something yesterday and I'm kicking myself because 2019, 2020, a lot of stuff about APIs wasn't being talked about. And I started to write a book. And I got about 150 pages in, right? And because the book was going to be hands-on, because it was also going to be complemented with a course. So you get the book, you get the course, and you can do it both, right? I had the VMs and all that set up. And at some point in time, I got discouraged or whatever, burnout, whatever the case may be, and I didn't finish it. And now I saw a webinar yesterday about a CISO talk about why APIs are being are so important. And shout out to Corey Ball. And I'm not, it's no disrespect to Corey. He's awesome in what he does with APIs, but he wrote a book, and the book's going to be out next year about hacking APIs. And when I started looking at some of the excerpts of the book, I'm kicking myself, because I was like, that could have been me.
Why not still deploy it out? I mean,
no. It's still gonna happen. Right. But there was a lot going on last year with the job and stuff like that. And I wanted to also, my thing is going back to some of the stuff you see online with people being attacked for putting out certain things and then being accused of being a scammer or because it didn't work for them. My thing is, I already double and triple check, but now with all of that crap going on, I feel like I need to check even 3 more times before I know the content is good before I put it out. But it's on my list of goals.
Yeah.
And hopefully something will be out in 2022. So speaking of that, before we get into the goals, if someone were to approach you and ask you 3 quick tips on how to get into tech, what would you say how we can get more people in?
First things, what I would do is narrow your scope on what you want to do. Don't be so, well, I want to go into cybersecurity. You got to do your homework first. What does that mean? What's your passion? The second tip I always find is, if you can't find a mentor, find someone that is doing a project and kind of just see if you can kind of do some shadowing with them. And that can kind of turn into a mentorship. So definitely if you can find a mentor, that would be great, because they can help you along the way, even if it's a shadow apprentice opportunity. Mm-hmm. The next thing to do is to learn the fundamentals. So if you're doing cybersecurity or you're doing cloud, learn the networking piece of the fundamentals, because that's going to be very critical in any discipline, whether it's security or whether it's cloud or whether it's automation. Because I don't care what you say on when you deployed something out, if you don't understand the protocols, the ports, how this interacts with, let's say, the network infrastructure, you're gonna wind up having a lot more headache than what's necessary. So learn the fundamentals, and don't be afraid to put the time in to really master your craft. So, for
Yes.
example, when you're trying to learn, let's say, cybersecurity, if you want to do, let's say, InfoSec or information security, right? Or what's another one? Cloud security or network security. Well, you got to understand the fundamentals of that. And so, therefore, you've got to really take the time out to learn the networking piece, learn the cloud security or the cloud piece, and how they intertwine between the two. Don't learn just one aspect of it and then that's okay, I'm done, I'm ready for the next one. Because then you're going to fail, or not really fail, but just come up on a challenge where you're going to have to either figure out how you're going to overcome that obstacle, or what's the next step here. So really get intimate with your learning the fundamentals. There's a famous quote by Billie Jean King. She's a famous tennis player,
Mm-hmm.
and she talked about embracing pressure.
Yeah.
Pressure is a privilege, and so it only comes to those that have been put in those positions to really embrace it. So when I say that, I'm saying that you got to be able to just not really be afraid to get down and dirty with things as far as learning and expanding your technical knowledge, because
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be beneficial for you in the long run. So.
Absolutely. And I'll add on to that one with the fundamental stuff. Depending on what you are doing, build out a lab.
Oh yeah.
Build out. I mean, like I said, that
Let me
hand.
show you this. Let me show you this. Hang on a second. I'm gonna show you this real quick. Can you see my lab?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
I love the wire maintenance, the cable
Well,
management.
now my husband talks about my wire maintenance. It's a mess, but I tell him I'm gonna clean it up. I got to clean up all this, but yeah, but that is my lab, and this you got a lab is important. That's how you expand on your technical knowledge.
Yes, absolutely. So, with that being said, what are your goals for the rest? Well, I mean, there's only like 2 weeks left of the year, but what are your goals for the rest of the year and into next year?
So my goal for the rest of this year is to finish up this Azure training I'm working on. I'm going to take a little bit of a break starting next week until after the MLK holiday. When I come back, I've got my course dropping, and I've also got my ebook coming out too. So, and it
Woo!
might be for how to get into tech. I got De'Ara and I. We're going to be working. We're finishing that up right now. So working on that right now. So yeah, and just putting out content. Just I really want to. I want, because you don't see African American women taking on a very large role on the technology side as far as training,
Yeah.
and that's something that has always been my passion. And then also I mentor people within Cisco and then outside of Cisco, so probably just continuing that. But just yeah, I'm being very intentional about my efforts and my time. Yeah, I'm just not. The sky's the limit for me. I'm looking forward to it. Last year was a debacle. I mean, it was just like everything was going on last year. Last year was like just I was burnt out from I think the second week of January up until just it was like, man, what is going on? And I just felt like we had, grew in like I felt like last year was we had grown like almost like 10 years in 1 month. It was like,
Yeah.
golly. But
Yeah.
this year, I've been just kind of focused on making moves, making some very strategic moves, and next year I'm just 100%. Let's go.
Yeah. No, it was for me, it was like, yeah, it was burnout from the moment the ball dropped, right? It was like we said happy new year, we kissed, we celebrated. I woke up the next day and was just like, oh my gosh. It was like yeah, that was pretty much 2020 in a nutshell. And then 2021 was basically righting the wrongs,
Yeah,
right? I was in the wrong job situation. I was in the wrong space mentally. So for me, well, I'm just going to finish out my slate of episodes that I have for this, and then 2022, more pushing out more content, Same thing as you, pushing out more content. Hopefully I'll get something out as far as a course. Um, spend more time with my family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I said I want to I want to build my assets and decrease my access.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like if you want to access me, you're gonna have to access me through my content, or if I'm a mentor, cool. If you want a coaching session, cool. But I think that's going on with Twitter right now. Until they figure that stuff out, yeah, I'm kind of like you and Dara, like, I'm gonna fall back a little on it and watch how that plays out. Hopefully, the people who I'm mentoring don't get caught up too much in that sauce.
Mm-hmm.
I For them, I will poke my head and go, "Psst."
Yeah.
Like I do that now. Like I jump into some Twitter spaces and I see who's watching the Twitter space, and I'm going, "Hey, don't listen to them.
Yeah.
Not being trying not to be a hater, but
Yeah.
don't don't fall down the rabbit hole." And then
Yeah.
some people rock with it, and some people are like, "No, they're great." And I'm like, "You'll learn for yourself.
Yeah.
I did my job, right? You can't save them all."
No.
But final question: what is your why?
Wow. So let's see. What is my why? I'm passionate about being a good representation for my community. I definitely want to make sure that people of color get into IT, and more specifically, women get into IT. I'm an advocate for STEM, and if I can, be that beacon of hope and that light, then yeah, definitely, that's a huge feather for me because that's what I give back. I mean, I can configure anything you put in front of me, but that's not really who I am. That's like a little small subset. But for me, it's giving that positive energy, positive light, positive interaction to make sure that I'm not the only one through that door, and that for me is important because I want Tanea, I want Deera, I want Mary to be successful because when they win, I feel like we win as a community. And
Yes,
so I that's just me. I've always been like that. But yeah, I definitely, I want to see people of color. So that's more my why. I want to see people of color and more women getting involved with IT, and not just be at the worker bee level. Meaning, like I want them to be make an impact within the organization. Lead those those difficult projects, and that way they can get their names out there too.
absolutely. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody watching, this has been my guest, Erica Cooper.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
We're gonna give her a round of applause.
Thank you.
So again, thank you for being on the show. Love the conversation. Got to have you back at some point.
Okay.
And in 2022, when you're ready to launch all of that stuff, let me know how I can help.
Okay.
If it's so much as a tweet, if you want to come back and push it, you know, you know how to find me. Darren knows how to find me. Um, Let me know how I can get that information out there and make that happen. And like I said, you have I'm sure Mary Galloway sees it as well, and let's get that out there. So, ladies and gentlemen, everybody watching, this has been another episode of InfoSec Unplugged. If we have any questions, now would be the time to ask them right before we close out the show. Professor Black Ops does said, do you have any issues harmonizing different security requirements in the cloud, like with Fedramp, Nist, FISMA, etc.?
No, I mean, yeah. As far as like, so there are some requirements for Nist that we need to take into consideration for it. Like I said, I'm working earlier. I'm working with my mentor to kind of make sure we account for all of that. But as far as like, for example, the technologies and the let's say the actual design solution from a delivery perspective, I don't see that as a major challenge as far as merging all of that into it. Um, but it's as I get further along that journey, it's going to be a little bit more telling. And
Right.
I probably have to rely back on Davin here and say, hey, I've got a major security question for you. Let me run something by you.
Hey,
Help me
I'm
figure
here.
out this.
I'm here for it. Lift as we rise, right? Groundbreaker asks, can anyone recommend materials for PowerShell? Groundbreaker, there is a PowerShell course. I can't
Udemy.
remember where it is. You know
Udemy.
what? Just check out Udemy. Udemy might have it, and I'm not just saying it because I'm an affiliate. I'm saying it because more than likely someone's done something there. Mary Galloway said, "Can you mentor me?" Laugh out loud.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. And then Ty says, "Is there any such things as micro burnout? Burnout is burnout, be it small or large. The moment you feel it, you'll know."
Oh, yeah.
You'll know. And Manny says, great show and great chat.
Thank you.
So, yes, thank you. I appreciate the love and support. Again, you guys are the reason why I do this, and having conversations like this and bringing people like Erica to the forefront to get you guys a different perspective is super important for me. Everybody who I bring on here, it's not it's not random. It's by design. I do it because I see something in these people who that need to that light needs to be shined on them. So it's definitely by design, and it's definitely intentional. And you guys should definitely pay attention when, like I said, when Sister Cooper speaks. Because I'm telling y'all right now, I'm about to make a clip of that entire sermon, and I'm gonna put some music to it, and that's that's going to be the move. And then Manny says, sounds amazing, and it says, Erica, you are a big inspiration as it is. This is huge, doing your own thing, and that they love it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, and we got visited by Anonymous. When do you foresee the true cloud's embrace finally delivering us to the day of singularity and our binding destiny to merge with the machines?
I don't know. I mean, it's just like,
Yep. Anonymous is very colorful with the words, and most of us in the chat know who he is. But for those who don't know, go check out some of the old episodes. We'll leave it at that. But again, ladies and gentlemen, it's been another episode of InfoSec Unplugged. I'd love to keep going, but Erica is in high demand, and we're gonna go check out another space. So you guys take care, and make sure you tune in next week because it'll be our Christmas Eve special, and I will actually be joined by Makeshift and Sec Studio or Studio Sec. Caleb Caleb and Makeshift from the Sec Studio show will be my guest next week, and we're gonna have a whole conversation probably about the same thing that we've been talking about and closing out the year. So you guys take it easy. For my guest Erica, I've been Davin Jackson. Please take care, be safe, and I will see y'all next week.
all right.